We'll start off with an email from a woman who writes, I'm delighted to write that I've had the most amazing journey since finding real love. It's turned my world literally upside down. I have felt levels of peace, joy, and acceptance I could never have imagined. I don't know this woman. I've had some bumps along the road, yet they've often been the times that have shaped and guided me the most. Whew, that's unusual wisdom. If you're not hitting bumps along the road, then you're not working very hard. She continues, I've had the privilege of being beautifully loved by, and she names her coach, and feeling loved by God through my coach. It is this consistent and persistent love that has carried me to a very different place today. And it works like this consistently. Everybody who's listening, the people who persist, the people who trust their coach, the people who keep going, they win. They win every time. I've never seen them fail. It's the people who quit who lose. It's a miraculous thing to see. She continues, I got baptized 2 weeks ago in church she didn't specify. I'm loving my developing relationship with God. I've written a new dating profile after many years of hiding out from everybody. I'm surrounded by a beautiful real love and church family, and I'm working on healing my biological relationships. At this point, you may think you've died and gone to heaven, and it's hard to imagine your life getting better, but it really does. I can't count how many people I've said it's going to keep getting better, and they say impossible. And then 6 months later, okay, it's gotten a whole lot better. Because the possibilities are infinite. Because the love that we participate in is divine and infinite. So we're just mortal, stupid human beings. Of course, it keeps getting better and better because we participate more in this divine flow. She concludes, I've been given a gift and gifts more precious than anything money could ever buy. I would be very happy to share further my journey with anybody who is hovering, who's unsure whether this journey is what it says or if it's worth it. It is worth it. No doubt. I'm all the way in. This is just one of the many emails I get every week from somebody, most of these people I don't know, who have persisted in learning from a friend, a real love group, a coach, somebody who's helped them along the way. And because they've exercised faith along the way and trusted, poof, it works. Here's a woman who says, this morning, my ex was supposed to pick up our daughter, Helen, at 9 in the morning. My ex hasn't been to see her, our daughter, for 9 months and rarely talks to her. So this was kind of a big deal to our daughter, Helen. Yeah, I would imagine so. If you haven't seen your parent in 9 months, you would think it was a big thing. So Helen got up early and got ready and was all excited to see her mother. So I get this was the father writing. So 9 in the morning comes and goes, and at about 10 o'clock, I text my ex and ask if she's close. She says, oh, she's about an hour away, so she's going to be at least 2 hours late. And in case you haven't paid attention to people when they say, oh, I'm going to be an hour late, oh, double it. Clearly, this meeting wasn't that important to her. I mean, how important could a child be to a parent when they're 2 hours late after not seeing them for 9 months? And she does this almost every time. And you know, in her defense, I have let her, says the father here who's writing this letter. I mentioned to her, to the ex last time, that 9 in the morning means 9 in the morning. And next time, I won't wait around for her and put my day on hold just because she doesn't know what to do with the clock. So I finally said to the kids, we're going out. And I texted the ex that I would have to be somewhere at 9:30. I didn't say where. And we left the house and we went and got breakfast. And eventually the ex texted and asked where we were. And I said, out. And we arrived home 2 hours later. To some people, this might seem like punishment, but I know the person who's writing the letter. I know the tone of the letter. And she's just finally decided to let her ex experience the natural consequences of her decisions. People like your ex never change their inconsiderate behavior. Usually they never change it ever. But if they are going to change it, they never change it unless there's a price. And until they learn, they really inconvenience people and they think absolutely nothing of it. I used to have a friend who we we would agree to meet them somewhere for dinner, like at a restaurant, and we'd get there and wait for them for 2 hours. Well, that happened once. From then on, we'd go to the restaurant and we would just order dinner and be done and paid and left and home. And they text and say, "Well, where are you?" Well, we're done. We said we'd be at the restaurant at 7 and it's now 9:30, so we're finished. And then after a while, you learn simply not to set appointments with certain people. I also took the opportunity, says this writer, to talk to Helen, to the daughter, about priorities and how her mother's priority was not to get here on time, and that's just information about what she cares about. This is really very nicely done. Children need to learn the truth, or they assume something is wrong with them. If you hadn't said to your daughter, this is just the kind of choice that your mother makes consistently with priorities, then the daughter would assume that her mother was late all the time because there was something defective with her, that the daughter, wasn't worth being on time for. You continue. We talked about how it's important to be where you say you're going to be on time because other people's time is just as important as your own, and it's not loving to expect them to wait. And in many cases, they just won't wait. I told her how cruise ships leave the dock exactly at the second that the clock hits the top of the hour or whatever time they say that they're leaving. How airplanes don't sit around and wait for people who are late. They leave. So we had a really nice discussion about being on time. And good for you for doing this. It's a common, some people would call it a civility, to say, if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all. Yeah, and how do children learn the lessons of life without having the mistakes of other people pointed out to them? What matters is the delivery, the tone. If you're nasty and unkind when you point out the behavior of her mother, well, she's not going to learn anything except that you're nasty and unkind. But I'm pretty sure how you delivered this. And what you did was you taught her a very good lesson about time, about her mother, about how it's not her fault, all good. And it's about time that her mother experienced a consequence for her selfishness, and that your daughter learned something as a result of it. I got a letter from an employee who occasionally steals food from the kitchen where she works at a nursing home. Sometimes when she gets hungry, she just goes into the kitchen and steals whatever, I don't know, pudding pop or whatever. And the boss talked to her and actually gave her a warning about stealing food. That's pretty sweet because at most places you steal, you're gone. There's no discussion. They don't write you up. They don't warn you, you're gone. And I wrote her back and said, it's a little bit insane to do something that you know could put you on the street or in jail, don't you think? This lady has worked for months to get this job and is hanging on to the job by her fingernails and then steals food from the kitchen. She said, well, yeah, it is kind of crazy. And she admitted he shouldn't have had to do that. He shouldn't have had to give me a warning. No, he shouldn't. So you need to be sure that he doesn't have to keep giving you warnings. You have run into a soft-hearted supervisor who wants to give you a second chance. And most of them won't, because there are plenty of people out there who are looking for your job and only too happy to take your place and who won't steal, and the boss knows that. Part of you kind of enjoys the drama of reacting insanely to things. It's one of the reasons that you steal things. It gives you a sense of excitement in your life. You don't have much going on in your life. So when you steal, there's a little kind of a sense of thrill to it. A woman once asked me, why does my husband use porn if I'm available to have sex all the time? Because it's not about the sex. Here's a guy who, and this isn't the case with every guy, but in this particular guy's case, he gets a kind of a dirty thrill out of sneaking off and using porn. So it's not entirely about the sex. Same thing here about the food. This lady doesn't need the food. She makes plenty and has food at home. Part of you enjoys not taking responsibility at work. And part of you would simply like to be taken care of for the rest of your life. I mean, a big part of you just screams that because you take so many chances at work. So losing your job would frankly be okay with you. There are some times that you act almost like you're determined to lose your job. You make so many fireable offenses in a single day. But there's a part of you that would like to be happy. You get to choose which part wins. She continues, yes, part of me really does want to live in a world where I could do nothing but sit in a room that was perfectly temperature controlled, have no emotion at all, and just eat gluten-free Oreo cookies all day and be happy. But that world does not exist. No, it doesn't. But you still kind of hope that it will somehow appear one day when you're fired. As it is, you barely keep a job. As it is, you have government-sponsored housing, so you don't have to pay for it. You are on the edge of homelessness. You could be homeless in days, and yet you keep taking these chances precisely because you hope that you will be magically saved. And in many cases in the past, you have been magically saved. You were saved by your parents and by others, and so you keep hoping it's going to happen. And in the real world, it doesn't usually work out like that. When I'm sane, you say, I see that it's a good thing that this magical world doesn't exist. That world of irresponsibility doesn't exist. I have found genuine joy and satisfaction in doing my job, and even sometimes in doing more than is required. I'm doing it because I want to. I just enjoy the feeling of improving myself in a task, getting even a small section of my job well done, and then I want to keep going. I would be happier if I applied that to the rest of my life. Yes, you would. We really do become happier and stronger when we work. It's not just a little cute aphorism I taught my kids. And yet, there are times you feel happier, but you remember it for like 5 minutes, and then you just work to get fired for the reasons that we already talked about. And you conclude saying, yeah, that's what's amazing to me. I almost feel sick and total dread and horror at the thought of losing this job and starting back where I was, which was sleeping under park benches in the middle of the Arizona summer heat. And then, even if I were to get another job, ending up, say, being a robot at some job that pays barely minimum wage and requires absolutely no intelligence, or working somewhere that I would hate. But that just shows me how much I still must be drawn to the magic of being irresponsible. Even in the face of that pain, I'm willing to risk everything. And for what? Brief comfort that turns to nightmare and disgusts me to even think of now. Literally, my dear, every choice you make is between life and death. You hang between that balance every time you make a decision because you've never established a pattern of responsibility. Here's hoping that you choose to be responsible. I did a recent intervention, and I was talking to a couple that were having problems. She had been controlling and demanding, and his natural response to fear was to withdraw. naturally they were doing poorly. He finally just left the relationship. He got so tired of being controlled and yelled at and having demands made that he just moved out. So they came to at least consider the possibility of reconciling, and she could. We got so close to reconciling. We got so honest. They both felt so loved at times that you would think there's no way these two could possibly fail during this intervention. And then you could just see her little brain engage and rev up like a little generator and go, nope, I have not gotten enough satisfaction for the pain he caused me. She brought up her pain over and over and over again. But he caused me this pain, but he caused me this pain. I finally said, so if we all go outside and we build an altar to your pain and we kill small animals on the altar to your pain and we bow as we circle the altar, would that be enough? Would that do it? Or should we chop off a limb? One of his, preferably, not one of mine. And she got angry that I would say that, thinking that I was making fun of her. Only a little, because that's how much she was worshiping her pain. It doesn't do any good to dissect pain and to worship it and to pay attention to it and to focus on it and to go through every event that caused it. She finally saw that it was all true. No anger in a relationship, no pain, no fear, no past. Don't go over any of that stuff. And she finally just absolutely could not let go of her need to have him suffer for all the things he did to her, which he really didn't do to her at all. When he withdrew from her, he was really running for his own life. That she brought an end to the relationship. It's over. And now she's feeling really bad, and at least there's some shared blaming here. Instead of just blaming him, now it's at least half my fault. Here's somebody who says, I do not do well when anybody yells at me while I'm driving. Imagine. All the rest of us really enjoy being yelled at while we're driving. My heart races. I jerk the wheel. That can't be a good thing. And I feel panicked. I've explained this tons of times to my husband, but he feels that he has to react by screaming, watch out. So how do I solve this for us both? So far, in the last, say, 10 times this has happened, I've not done it well. I've actually reacted in fear and anger because it just scares me to death when he screams in a closed car. I'm not sure that I can find a choice that works. So I happen to know this woman who sent the letter. And in the last 10 years, she's gotten no tickets and has had 0 accidents. So you got to ask yourself some kind of sensible questions. If somebody has driven 300,000 miles, they've gotten no tickets and had no accidents. Exactly how close to a dangerous accident could they be getting to the point where they have to be yelled at 10 times in a month? Experience would suggest not at all. It's experience that proves how well somebody does something. Now, if this woman, and I know people like this, had been in 4 accidents in the last month and had 6 tickets and her driver's license was suspended, well, then this gets really easy. She really shouldn't be driving at all. But this woman does not drive unsafely. Her husband just likes control and power. And honey, you really do get to say to your husband, you get to pull off the road, pull into a parking lot and say, you make a choice. You say this with 0 irritation. Either I drive or you drive. But it's one or the other. One of the choices is not, I drive with your suggestions or I drive with your yelling. Not even a suggestion. So let's say I miss a turn while we're driving, or I choose the lane that is not moving as fast as the other lane. then too bad. Bring a book or take a nap, but no more comments about my driving, ever. You don't ever have to tolerate being yelled at while driving. You can tell that to whoever is doing it, whether it's your husband or anybody else. When he yells, it makes you afraid. They've actually done driving studies that show that when people are frightened, they drive roughly with the accident rate, with the mistake rate of people who have had three glasses of, or three drinks, three alcoholic beverages, and are legally drunk. So it just makes you afraid, and then you are certain to drive worse. So he couldn't possibly use the excuse that, well, you were about to make a mistake, and so I had to yell. No, if you were about to make a mistake, then shutting up would be the best thing to do, because yelling just makes your decision making worse. Fear makes everything worse. Tell him this. Tell him to watch my answer and see if there's any hesitation in my voice. Tell him that that's what you mean to say to him. There are lots of different solutions. He can drive. You can go in separate cars. He can close his eyes. You can tie him up with zip ties and put him in the trunk. I'm kind of, leaning in that direction. He brings a book. He reads a book. He learns to be a big boy and just shuts up is one of the possibilities. He will have the excuse of safety. I know this man. He'll say, well, but you got too close to the truck. It's simply not possible that you're consistently getting too close to other drivers, and yet you haven't had a wreck in 10 years. It's just not possible. If you were too close that often, you'd have already gotten in a wreck. So his fears are completely unfounded, and you got to come up with a solution where you don't get yelled at, and you're entitled to have one. Here's somebody who says, my ex-wife has always spoiled the kids rotten, which was one of several reasons that we got divorced. She talks to them about her problems, her fears, her anger, and more. She confides in them about her difficulties in life. She makes them her friends. These are not adult children. These are, preteen and teenage children. If she thinks that I'm being unfair, my ex, then the older kids sympathize, and then they come to me or they call me and demand that I change my behavior. What do you think so far? He says. This is unbelievably dangerous behavior on the part of your ex-wife. Your children need a mother, but she's not functioning like a mother. She's their buddy, and she's a victim buddy at that. So she's teaching them simply horrible principles of relationships. You can't make her stop. I'm just telling you what she's doing. You continue. My 12-year-old daughter showed me a text that she got from her mother the other day. It says, "Good morning, beautiful girl. Just to make sure that we are clear, nothing makes me happier than having you and your brothers lying around my living room or sitting around my table. I love having you with me all of the time. You will never be too much work. The three of you are my joy and my greatest gifts." Now, there are people who would take that, frame it, put it on their wall as a memorial to their parent until they were dead. Let me translate this for you, how it comes across to the kid and what it really means. Beautiful girl, she calls her. What does the daughter being a beautiful girl have to do with loving her? The translation to the girl is, I love you because you are beautiful, either physically or your behavior or whatever. And you're beautiful because you make me happy. That's what makes you beautiful, is that you bring a smile to my face. She says, you are my joy. Well, which means you are the source of happiness for me, which is a nightmare to tell a child, to make them responsible for the happiness of their parents. Without you doing the right things, I am less happy, the mother is saying. You are responsible for my happiness, which means you owe me happiness. And then, she went all the way to the wall and said, nothing would make me happier than having you and your brothers lying around my living room or sitting around my table. You will never be too much work, pretty much forever, which is how I get phone calls from, I'm not making this up, usually women who say, I don't know how to get my son to clean his room. How old is your son? 48. These are the sons who were written notes like this by mothers like this one. You're the source of my happiness. My only purpose in life is to be your mother. And so you get to sit around and I don't really care what you make of your life. You give me a role in life. I know another couple, I do, who are about 10 years further along than this man's letter to me. The kids have no healthy relationships. The mother has turned all the kids against their father. In fact, the similarities are uncanny. He is the monster of the family, while she's the poor, pathetic little creature that everybody feels sorry for, who periodically even admits herself voluntarily to the local mental health facility so that everybody can see how miserable her ex-husband has made her. She even says, look what your father has done to me. So then the kids regularly write hate mail to their father, repeating exactly what their mother has told them. And then in their venom, they wonder why they can't have healthy relationships with potential partners that they're dating. Well, how could they? Their mother has shown them nothing but sickness in relationships, and so they attempt to duplicate this kind of relationship with the people they date, and they wonder why it doesn't work out. All they know is victimhood at its sickest. And it all started at the age of the first family that I talked about, actually even earlier. So it's very common for people to see little 2 and 3-year-olds go, oh. It's that little look on the face, oh, please, to whatever. Another bowl of Fruit Loops. Do I really have to clean up the mess that I just made on the floor? And the child learns that if they go, then they get whatever they want. And they grow up to be the kids in both of these stories. And they're miserable for life. There's nothing more healthy for children than to see the healthy love of their parents for each other. How else can they learn what a healthy relationship is like? Here's a story of a 2-year-old who was raised from birth with unconditional love, with real love. The mother says, a conversation I just had with Zoe, the 2-year-old, after we said prayers at night, asking for her to feel loved and to have a great day tomorrow. And at the end of the prayer, Zoe, the 2-year-old, says, I need to be loved. Mother says, yes. The 2-year-old, if I'm not loved, then I would be angry. I like how clear 2-year-olds are. The mother, yes, you would be. It's a good thing that you're loved. Mommy loves you. Daddy loves you. Jesus loves you. Zoe snuggles into her mother. You've seen them do that, just kind of bury themselves into whatever flesh is closest. And Zoe says, yeah, if I'm not loved, I would be angry, just like the stepmother. She's referring to the stepmother from Snow White, the one who's jealous and tries to kill Snow White because she'd seen the cartoon that day. The mother said, yes, the stepmother needs to be loved too. If she had somebody to kiss her and hug her and hold her like this while she was kissing, hugging, and holding Zoe, then she would not be angry. Zoe said, why? The mother said, because you feel happy when I'm holding you, right? Zoe thought, said, yeah. Last week you were angry at me. If you ever wonder the details of exactly what happened in the past, or if you ever want to see exact justice enacted, ask a 2-year-old. So Zoe says, last week you were angry at me. You said, Zoe, Put on your boots. Notice a whole week ago, the mother said, instead of defending herself, the mother said, yes, I was angry, and that was not nice of me. Zoe says, yeah, you were angry because you needed to be loved. The mother said, yes, I did. You can teach kids principles like this when they're 2, and they'll be happy all their lives. Or you can teach them how to be victims when they're 2, and very few of them recover. The lessons that they learn the earliest are the ones that they learn the deepest. So God bless mothers like this that teach the Zoes of the world how important it is to feel loved and not be angry. Here's somebody that wrote me and said, have you figured out or learned from experience where the fine line is between having compassion and enabling somebody? Yeah, have figured it out, and not really so much a fine line, more like the Grand Canyon. The distinction is huge. So compassion has no goal for the other person. If I'm compassionate towards you, I simply love you, not I love you so that anything. Enabling has the goal of making the other person feel better, and secondarily, to make you feel better because you removed their discomfort. Compassion is natural and effortless. Enabling requires a great deal of thought and effort. In fact, sometimes it's just overwhelming. Compassion is simple. I simply care about you. Enabling becomes unbelievably complicated as the effects of enabling become more and more twisted like a ball of yarn. Compassion is ennobling and strengthening, whereas enabling weakens the other person. Compassion means giving someone what they need. Enabling means giving people what they want. Compassion makes people more independent, while enabling makes people weak and dependent. So, yeah, figured out the line between compassion and enabling, and it's not a fine line. This is from a woman experienced in real love. We'll call her Kathy. And she used to have, when I first met her, pretty much, if you looked under the dictionary under 0 self-esteem, there was a picture of her. She wrote and said to me, a friend of mine, Shirley, and her husband, Doug, had made arrangements to meet with me for dinner tonight. And I showed up at the restaurant and I waited for them and they simply did not show up. I was disappointed. Yeah, I bet so. If anybody's ever had that experience, it's really kind of disturbing. Because for the longest time, you wonder if you got the time right or the date right. And then back in the days before cell phones, you were doomed because you had to sleep overnight there and wait for them because you didn't know if they were late or, lying dead in the middle of the street somewhere. It's just kind of an unsettling experience. Here's the email she received the next day, because she called and left a message about the fact that they hadn't showed up. Kathy did. The email said, just got your phone message and I left you a phone message. I am so sorry. We were thinking that our date was next Saturday. I even said to Doug, I work until 4 and we have dinner with Kathy at 7. There is no excuse for us not remembering that it was today. No excuse. I'm so sorry. I do hope that you forgive us and that we can plan this again. We're free next Saturday, as that is when we thought we were getting together, even though we have you in our phone calendar for today. So I don't blame you if you say no. We're very sorry, feel really bad. Kathy said to me, how do I respond to the email above with, or the email below, it was the email with real love. In real love, I wouldn't express my feelings to Shirley and Doug, she says. Mm, right. And that's probably pretty smart, because if you explain to them how your feelings were hurt, she's already, I lost track of how many times she apologized for making this mistake, at least 5 that I can think of. And if you then add to her feeling bad and apologizing that your feelings were hurt because you were stood up, it serves no function. The only reason to tell somebody about your feelings is so they can learn something from it, or so you can feel accepted and loved. And this lady already obviously cares about you and has apologized thoroughly. Kathy continues, I would discuss it with another real love person who can hear me like I'm doing right now and writing this email to you. I need to change the judgment that I'm not worthy. I feel my judgment changing even as I type these words. That's brilliant. I am worthy as I remember that I am loved by lots of real love people. What happened tonight just does not matter. Wow, you're really growing up, kid. You're right. They were simply careless, and her response proves that. Possibly thoughtless. We're not going to get into that distinction, but it was about their mistake. It wasn't about you. You continue. My real love bucket is filling up again. I can feel it. The aim is to get to the point where I don't react with any negative feelings, because Shirley and Doug were doing the best that they could. Am I missing anything in this little exercise in EJFR, event, judgment, feeling, reaction? No, actually, honey, you're a living example of EJFR, a textbook example. Your previous judgment in years past would have been event. You were stood up, they didn't show up. Your judgment would have been they didn't show up because you're a worthless piece of garbage. Feeling, you would have felt terrible, horrible, sad, alone, fearful, and then you would have reacted by being offended and angry and withdrawing from them. And you changed it all by changing your judgment. By doing what? Just by writing me this email. Just in the process of writing it, you could remember that I care about you. You could remember that other people care about you. And because your judgment changed, that you are worthwhile, well, then what happens to the feelings of feeling awful and sad and lonely and betrayed? Poof, gone. And your reaction is completely different. You continue, just typing this email, the disappointment is being replaced by real love. I needed to do this event, judgment, feeling, reaction exercise to let the disappointment go and replace it with feeling love for Shirley and Doug. Your suggestions would be appreciated on how to lovingly word the email. I do want to love them, and at the same time, I don't want to be a doormat. It's only happened once. If it had happened more than that, you would have mentioned it. So that's what's called a mistake. It's not a pattern. It's not a message about you. Not really even a message about them. If they did this every other time, I've just quit agreeing to meet people who do this every other time. It's just called a mistake. And you might, in an email or a text or whatever, say, yes, I was surprised that we didn't get together, but I refuse to let a simple mistake get in the way of our friendship. I look forward to meeting you guys at our previously appointed time this Saturday at wherever it was that you agreed to meet. Now, if they did it again at some future point, I don't mean 20 years from now, I mean if they did it 2 weeks from now, then I would consider talking to them about it, whether there was something about your friendship that you didn't know. But one mistake, one mistake, you just blow it off. Somewhere I wrote, and I don't know where, who knows, maybe in a blog somewhere, I said, we know that we're truly grateful when we're thankful for the difficulties that teach us the most. Somebody wrote to me and said, I just need to babble about my difficulties, hopefully unedited for a few minutes, so I can let it sink in that I can be grateful for them and not scared of them. This could be so life-shifting for me. Yeah, it really could. If everybody would go on and on about being grateful for their difficulties, it would change the world. The real nature of gratitude is understood by very, very few people. Okay, so unedited, my difficulties. Today, I am grateful that I have a job, even though I hate it, that I've thoroughly emotionally damaged my daughter. I'm grateful for that. Is everybody hearing this? She's learning to be grateful for the difficulties. So I'm grateful that I have a job I hate. I'm grateful that I thoroughly emotionally damaged my daughter. I'm grateful that I see people as objects who are out to hurt me often from day to day. I'm grateful that I'm addicted to being hard on myself and others, that I let myself be used over and over again, which concludes that I must enjoy it, that I'm living out of a bedroom at my alcoholic cousin's house and I'm still broke, that I get confused in a heartbeat because I can lie to myself and others with the best of them. I'm grateful for all of this because, here's the lesson, all of these things have shown me that it's about believing the old lie that I'm a piece of garbage. This is another version, in case you missed it, of event, judgment, feeling, reaction. So I'm grateful for all of these feelings and reactions, she's saying. Why? She's saying it, she didn't realize she's saying it perhaps, but this is very subtle. I'm grateful for my feelings and reactions because they demonstrate to me the lies of my judgments. That's good. But somehow, all of this, all of these bad feelings and reactions and all that stuff have gotten me here talking to you right now by email today. Well, that's a pretty good start, honey. You could stop right there and you'd understand gratitude. You continue, though. This lie has created an opportunity for me to have a real parent who loves me, who's helping me to know and feel his love and God's love more. Simply put, without my challenges or difficulties, I would never have gotten here. So, whoa, cool. Yeah, big whoa, big cool. And now, slowly but surely, I can learn to love my daughter more because I recognize that I haven't, and I've heard her in the past, which brings big tears to my eyes, even though she may never be able to receive it fully. I'm not in charge of that. And I can someday find a man to love and be a real partner with. Being grateful for all the really good stuff in my life is important too, because, Lord knows my negativity blinds me from all of it sometimes. But being grateful for the challenges feels so mind-blowing big for me. Okay, so babbling concluded for the moment. Well, that's pretty darn good babbling. I can tell you with no doubt whatever that I have learned the most in my life from the most difficult situations in my life. So how inappropriate would it be for me to look back and wish I could change those difficult moments, which is what most people do. If only I could go back and change that. No, instead, I'm grateful for my drug addiction. I'm grateful for my confusion. I'm grateful for my anger. I'm grateful for all the things that finally woke me up to the point where I was willing to learn. It's being grateful for the tough stuff that is real gratitude. A lady wrote me and described a household dog. She always has to tell the dog like 10 plus times to come in and get into the utility room. And she says that her tone is always begging. Now, I don't remember the name of the dog. Susie, come, Susie, come into the utility. And she goes through this 10 plus times every single day. She wrote this. The other day, after we had a long discussion, we meaning she and I, about speaking to people with confidence, I simply commanded the dog. This never occurred to me to apply to a dog. I commanded the dog to come to the utility room. Sally, not angrily, come to the utility room. Not angry, just firm. and she walked straight into the utility room. It see animals, you know how they like to say animals sense fear. I really believe that. So do humans. They sense pure fear, raw fear, and they also sense fear that is being reacted to or covered up. So if you're angry, that's still fear. And everybody shuts their ears when we're afraid. So she commanded the dog to come, the dog came. If we speak with anger, people might respond. If we're hesitant, they have no confidence that we know what we're saying. Solution, no fear, which leads to no anger or hesitation or more. The solution is always the same, and we've talked about it many, many times. No fear. Here's somebody who says, my husband, Adam, decided to go to Rome, Italy with an old friend, leaving me and our son behind for a week. I didn't really mind. He's been doing something once a year with his friend for years. But since he returned home to California, 9 time zones different, he's been jet lagged. Yeah, I know something about that. And going to bed earlier and going to work earlier. But now he wants my 3-year-old son, Michael, and me to adjust our sleep schedules so that he can have more time with us in the evening. He wants the 3-year-old to go to bed earlier so he can have more adult time with me before his own bedtime. I've been reluctant to change both our sleep patterns. What is the loving thing to do? Well, it's simply never reasonable to change the sleep pattern of a child unless you absolutely have to. Never kick a sleeping dog is the same as never kick a sleeping child. Never mess with the sleep of a kid. You don't do it. And he's asking you both to change all this for his convenience after making a decision to take his vacation. He chose to go to Italy. Now he wants you to pay for it as far as your schedule goes. That's not reasonable. You could do that if you wished, but it's more reasonable for him to adjust for a few more days to the jet lag. You continue. That probably didn't feel good to him, that I've been hesitating to comply with this schedule change. He says that unless I can find a rational reason, that you're certainly welcome to let him listen to my response here. Why Michael and I can't shift our bedtimes, then we need to do all this change to be on the same schedule. This is easy. He's being controlling and selfish. That's the rational reason. And changing sleep schedules for a child isn't just unkind, it's just plain stupid. So I feel really trapped. I'm a night person. I have a hard time getting up early in the morning, especially when I have a hard time falling asleep at night. And I like waking up when the sun comes up, not when it's still dark. So I'm resisting this. I'm not sure what to do. I feel like I need to come up with some amazingly rational reason why it won't work, and that I don't like it isn't a good enough one. I'm a little scared that you'll tell me I need to do everything I can to make my husband happy, and that I should switch up my 3-year-olds and my schedule. But I'd be reluctant to do it at this point. I would say this to him. It's unreasonable to change a child's sleep schedule. They thrive on routine. There's a rational reason that he's looking for. Then you made all the decisions about changing your time zones. And now you want me to adjust to your decisions. Part of your decision to go to Italy was to make the time zone adjustment when you came back. That's just part of the package. You don't get to go to Rome, Italy, and come back and have there be no time zone changes in your head. You didn't ask me ahead of time if I'd be willing to make the time zone adjustments, which would have been part of the decision to go, a rational decision to go. So asking me now to pay for the choices doesn't make any sense. I don't have to defend my choice here because I haven't changed anything. Nothing in my life's different. You need to supply justifications for us changing our schedules since you are making the changes. There, That's a rational response. You continue. I want to see if there's something we can do for Adam to have more time for his own things or spend more time with me or my son. If that's what he wants, there's got to be a way other than our going to bed super early and getting up super early like he does for work. So what do you think? Well, mostly I think he can grow up and learn to deal with jet lag. I've traveled the world many times over and never required anybody to adjust to my schedule. It was my choice to go to those places. I once went from China to Sweden in a 2-day period of time, changing 18 time zones in 2 days. Did I ask anybody to change their time schedule? No. He can spend time with you as soon as he gets home. And he can spend as much time with you as he can before he becomes too tired and goes to bed. He can change his work schedule. There are lots of solutions, but the ones that he's proposing really are pretty selfish, and he doesn't get to impose those on you, and he does not get to tell you that you're selfish if you don't agree with him. A lady and her husband, new subject, were going to visit his aunt. His aunt is negative and controlling, and they always end up staying longer than they want by a lot, and then they wish they hadn't. They end up being unkind then to each other afterward because they've stayed a lot longer than they wanted to, and they're both cranky and they wish they hadn't, and they blame each other for staying too long. So what do? You talk about how the visit affects you. This is before you go. Then you agree how long you're going to be there before you go. When you arrive, you set the time of leaving. Actually, you should set it before you get there, but you remind yourselves what time you're leaving. And then either of you can just stand up, either of you, and say to the aunt, thanks for having us. Really enjoyed it. Look forward to seeing you next time. And then you both leave. And you can't believe how much simpler it gets when you both agree to that really simple and loving plan, which you execute as a partnership. It's a great example of being loving, considerate, planning, partners. It's a really great example of a whole lot of things. Lots of great questions, but again, they come down to none of them work unless we find the love that we need, we trust the love that we find, we remember the love that we find, almost bank it so that we can use it in times that are difficult, and then learn to share it with other people, which puts us in that infinite, eternal flow of the universe and gives us a power that there's really nothing else in life that will. It works every time. Look forward to seeing you in a week.